here's a super pro tip of what you can do. So if you're currently a reseller, you're most likely using an STR or sell-through method. But did you know that there's actually 2 STRs? I'm going to explain that in this video, so you want to stay tuned for that. Okay, so we all know the standard definition that's going on right now about what STR is, which is the sell-through rate. And essentially what we do is that you go to eBay and then you do a search, preferably as specific as possible of a particular item for the best results. And then we look at how many listings are available and we treat that as the current supply. So then we scroll all the way down to the bottom left and then we check the box for sold, and then sold and completed will both highlight. So that's what we call a sold comp. Now we take these 2 numbers of how many sold in the past 30 days and we compare it to how many listings there was to figure out exactly how well an item is trending. However, the issue with all forecasts is that it's not always guaranteed. There's going to be times it's going to rain, and there's going to be times where you expected it to rain and it didn't. So granted, I do agree with the idea that this is a way to see which items deserve our attention, but you're still at the mercy of when you do go sourcing, you could only pick up whatever is available that day. However, the main issue with this method is that this is just a marketplace STR and not a personal store STR, meaning that what other people are selling does not contribute to the progress of your store. So if you haven't sold it yourself, you haven't proven that not only does this item sell, but you're also able to sell it in your store, because there are different metrics for every single seller. Whether another seller is a top rated seller and you're just above standard right now, or other people have other listing methods that you're not using in your methods. So to really explain exactly what I'm talking about, I have in my hands a deck of cards and we're going to compare and contrast the 2 models. First, we're going to demonstrate exactly how the current reselling model works. So I'll just go ahead and shuffle the cards so it's a bit at random, and then we're going to go ahead and source maybe 8 items, okay? This is just sourcing items that we believe is going to sell. Not doing too much homework. It's just we went to the store and then we looked around, and of course we're not going to buy anything that we think nobody wants. We're all going to buy things that we think have potential to sell. And then we go ahead and then we list these items, only to find out that the red cards are the ones that sold, and then the black cards are the ones that did not sell. So this one has a 50-50 turnout, right? Of 4 items that sold and 4 items that didn't sell. So these 4 items that sold, okay, so we know that. And then these are unknowns. Now, the issue with these unknowns is that I don't know if it's going to sell next week or the week after or the month after or maybe a year or maybe not at all. We don't know. So while I wouldn't immediately lump them into a category of unsold stuck items, I will say that they're definitely unknown items. Now, we use the STR method in order to increase our chances of not having black cards and having more red cards. Exactly. Okay. But here's the thing. I argued that the problem with this method, right, is that all the items are essentially unique. That's why I use the deck of cards, because all 52 cards are going to be different. So let's just say we have 5 items over here that we sourced, right, for the sake of keeping everything within frame in the camera. And then what happens for us to source these 5 items? Well, the first task is to go out and shop and then bring them home. So that's one task that will take care of all 5 of these items. So let's set that aside, because from this point on, we're going to be spending a lot of energy doing all 5 of these items, aren't we? Because first you have to clean them up, inspect them, and then see what's going on with each one of them, right? You might have to wash it if it's clothing. You might have to find out where the blemishes are or whatever. You have to detail these things first, right? Or you might even have to fix up or refurbish one of these items. Then we have to take photos for all of them. Okay, so that's another task for each one. Then after this, we have to weigh them. Well, sorry, we have to list them, right? So we have to go ahead and write a description, as well as a title, as well as maybe fill out some item specifics, right? Now, here's the part that I find a little bit difficult to work with. Okay. A lot of gurus out there will tell you, right, that you have to streamline your workflow so that you can bang out this process faster, right? So that it doesn't take up so much more of your time. So you have to put it into muscle memory, work harder, find a way to do this a little more systematically. But yet at the same time, if an item doesn't sell, they'll say, well, maybe your photos were no good. Maybe your listings, the title was, not written as specific, or maybe there was a misspelling of it. Maybe it was listed in the wrong category. Maybe your pricing is no good. So that is another issue in itself, where if I'm trying to do all this work every single day very quickly, yet at the same time try to manage the speed of my workflow at the same time, it's kind of fire and water, right? It kind of fights each other. And now on top of this, we have to ship the item. So when we ship the item, we have to weigh each item, because every single item weighs a little bit differently, right? Generally, if you're selling like all jeans and all t-shirts, yeah, maybe they'll all weigh within the same 1 pound difference. So maybe, this work is not as difficult. But if you're selling stuff that is a lot more variation in different items, then you're definitely weighing all this stuff. And then packing could be simple, because you're packing just all jeans, all clothing, all like one very, very similar item. But packing can also be super cumbersome too, because what if you're selling all sorts of different things, right? It could be an appliance to a musical instrument to, different things. And for every single one of them, you'll need a different type of packaging. And then you have to fill it up with either bubble wrap or newspaper or something to fill in the empty gaps. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to tell you guys is that if we contrast this, all right, to a different sales model, right? This ultimately is a lot of resources, money, time, energy that is all that we all just laid out in front of us. And what I'm saying that we should do is instead put it all into one focus, right? One focus, one niche, one item. And the reason why is because, number one, this is definitely going to be a way more manageable system. How hard is it to do one listing? Now, because you're just doing one listing, okay, you could spend all this time, all this energy into making beautiful photos, into writing beautiful descriptions instead of a brief description. You could get really specific in your titles rather than just writing general titles. So there's so much more time and effort that you could put focusing on just one. Now, the difference with this, okay, is that let's say we go out and then we source in bulk a certain item for a trial run, because without a trial run, we cannot determine what is the actual sell-through rate that applies to our store that actually contributes to the progress of our store. So therefore, let's say we get an item, like a flashlight or something like that. Now we got 50 flashlights, and then we're going to attempt to sell them, right? Now, of course, we're going to do a lot of research first. Do people want this flashlight? Is this a hot brand right now? All those things that you would normally do for any other item that you would normally pick up at the store. Instead, you would first figure out exactly which items that you have access to a bulk inventory, right? Whether that's sourcing it through a trade show or talking to a wholesale supplier or whatever. You have to establish that first, and now you know what the item is. When you have that item, then you could go and research it back on eBay and see how well it's doing, and then tell yourself, okay, do we give this a try or not? Now, because you did all that research and you've now decided to green light this item, okay, then we're going to attempt to do it. So there's no reason why it shouldn't sell. The question is whether it's going to sell well or not. You might hit the jackpot in your first go because you put so much time, effort, research, understanding the item, just being a guru of your field. And therefore, you're just going to hit the ground running, right? The first thing that we do when we get in this item, we're just going to go ahead and put a title as best as we can. We're going to take some reasonable photos for it. We're going to work out a decent description, exactly the same you would in your reselling model. And then what's going to happen? Bang, 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 bang. Wow, this is great. It's moving so many every single day. All right. And what happens is that this now warrants the fact that, hey, we got to reorder this stuff. And basically, over the course of, I don't know, 7 days, 2 weeks, no matter how quickly you sell out, you can average that out and then figure out, okay, exactly when I do order more based on how much inventory space, based on the rate of sales, based on how much capital I currently have, how many more flashlights I need to go purchase. Adversely, if this item doesn't do that well, okay, even despite all the research we've done, no matter how much research you do, it's never going to be guaranteed. So maybe it moves very, very slowly, right? Very, very slowly. So what can we do here? Well, number one, if we only picked up a box of 50 flashlights, maybe we don't have to reduce the price on it. I'll just take it. I'll just sell it very, very slowly. It's okay. All right. And in the meantime, I'm just going to go look for a second item while this thing is still busting out 3 sales for me every single day. It's still working for me. And I'm actually making money on it. It's just going to take me quite a while in order to get rid of it. So having 50 units and moving it at 3 sales a day, it's going to be just under 2 months before you get rid of this thing. Well, that's a lot better than having a pile of unsold items that you don't know if it's going to sell out within, a week, 2 weeks, a year, or maybe not sell out at all. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. This is a business model that is going to burn a lot cleaner than the current reselling business model. So now this becomes a tried and true item in your store that you could now say it is one of your core items. Okay. And it's very important that in this business model, we start to develop more and more core items, right? Because exactly what is a core item? A core item is items that's going to be selling X amount of units for us every single day, because we've already put all the time, work, and energy into this, okay? And then all we do is pretty much just handle the shipping of it. This is when your money is working for you and you're not working so hard towards the money. Because before, in the old business model of all the work and steps that we have to do in order to sell 3 unique items, right? This is a lot of your time that you're selling towards your business. So rather instead, once you've established your core items, okay, even if it's just a single item, let's go through a day of what your workflow is going to look like. Well, basically, if your item sells 5 a day, all right, then what happens is that last night when you went to sleep, 5 of them sold. And then this morning, you're going to check your email, right? You have one task to check your email and say, okay, is there any cancellations, color changes, address changes, any questions? Let's get that out of the way before we start shipping stuff. Then we're going to do one task of printing all the labels for this thing. Now, because this item is already packaged, ready to go, you've weighed it ahead of time, and they're all going to weigh the same, then the workflow is so much easier because you're pretty much going to print the same shipping label for every single one of them. And then we're going to go ahead and slap on the labels to all of them. And then we're going to move it to the front of the warehouse or the office where it normally gets picked up if you have pickup, or we're going to go and load it into the car or truck and bring it to the post office ourselves. You could see that pretty much in this workflow over here, I even try to extend this as much as I can. Really, honestly, every single day, you just answer emails and then pack it and ship it. You just do these 2 things. So the question is, what do I do with the rest of my time? Well, honestly, you do whatever the hell you want to do with the rest of your time. Now you have a lot of free time. And I would argue that you would use your free time to go ahead and research your second item and develop another core item on top of another core item, while the workflow of your day, really essentially just one item. How much time is it going to take for you to answer emails for just one item, take inventory for just one item, right? Track the metrics of your item for just one item. It's so much more easier, right? Your account is very, very clean because there's just not that many things to look at. and we could go ahead and take this one item, all right, and sell it in many, many different ways. Because you have a bulk amount of inventory, you can easily now take your one item and then put it on many different other platforms. So we'll flip face up cards to represent other platforms, right? So if your item is applicable, now your item is not just on eBay, it's on Amazon, it's on Newegg, it's on Walmart, it's on Etsy, right? So you have all these marketplaces to sell at the same time, and you have a decent supply on hand that you're not going to run out of anytime soon. This way, you don't have to be that vigilant and you just check back periodically. So the next thing to know is that now my one item is in all these marketplaces, right? And I have many, many copies of this item in order to sell. Here's a super pro tip of what you can do, right? Because it's worth your time, and currently selling this item on eBay, you're already banging out 10 orders every single day on this, all right? You could go ahead now and let's do this to amp it up and make it even crazier, right? You go on ChatGPT and then you spend 2 to 3 paragraphs in your prompt explaining everything about your item. Again, it's worth your time to do this because we're just doing this for one item. How hard is it? So you explain it to ChatGPT and then you say, now, what I want from you is to give me a 80 character, including the spaces, title, right? That's going to fit on eBay nicely to describe my item. And I want you to optimize it for SEO. You're going to get a beautiful result for exactly what your title should be. Now, to take it a step even crazier on top of that, you go ahead and you tell him, hey, can you give me a couple of more variations? Like give me 3 more variations. So before you know it, ChatGPT is going to say, okay, you can say it like this, you can say it like this, and you can say it like this. The eBay ruling is that as long as your title is different, it doesn't count as a duplicate listing. So now what I can do is that I could go over to Fiverr because my item is already banging out 10 orders every single day. I'm already rolling it. I'm already making money. So I could take that money and then reinvest it into these 4 listings. How? Well, when you think about the current reseller model, okay, you guys probably have to take a lot of your own photos because essentially you can't source other people's photos because you could get a verified rights strike or you could get in trouble in some way. So you can't do that, okay? And no reseller, no guru, no professional recommends that you do that. So essentially you just have all these studio photos that you took in your basement or wherever your workplace is on your own. What you don't have is something called a lifestyle photo. What exactly is a lifestyle photo, right? A lifestyle photo is your product in action. It is a beautiful photo. Let's say it's clothing, right? It's clothing worn not just by a model standing inside of a studio. It could be themed, right? They could be standing in front of a waterfall, standing in front of a water fountain, standing, sitting at a very cozy cafe. And the warm vibe that the photo gives off is going to be very emotional to whoever is looking at it because a lot of spending is based on emotions. So when you think of like an old ad like Axe body spray, you think they're selling body spray? When you watch the ad, what happens? He uses the body spray and then the girls go wild over him. So what are you trying to say? You're trying to say, hey, look, if you use the Axe body spray, it's going to be a potential, right, of more female attention. And that's exactly what every young man wants, right? Just more female attention. And that's exactly what they're really selling. It's inducing that emotional response in order to get you to spend money. That's what a beautiful advertisement is. And you're absolutely not doing that in your reselling model if you're just making, your own studio photos. So what we could do now is that we could come back to this model and then get on Fiverr and then say to him, I need to find a photographer who's going to give me beautiful lifestyle photos of my item. Now, whatever the lifestyle photo is, right? Let's say we're doing, a sweater or something like that. So for every single one of my lifestyle photos, I want you to make for me 12 lifestyle photos in different settings using different models every single time, right? So what ends up happening is that you're going to have 12 lifestyle photos, right? That you could then dedicate to each one of your listings. And now they all have unique, beautifully written titles written by ChatGPT for you. And then they all have 3 unique lifestyle photos, essentially still all just selling the same one item. When you think about this, how much more potential is this going to increase your sales? This could possibly boost your sales to 15, 20, 30, 35 sales a day. If you're making $20 per order at 35 sales a day, do the math for that at 365 days. You could just see how far you could get with just properly spending all your time and energy instead of trying to diversify all your knowledge in all sorts of products and just put it all in one niche, one focus, one item. And this is exactly the direction that I'm pushing for. So now when you think about it, the possibilities are endless, right? We developed one very nice core item, and then we might develop 2 core items, and then we might develop 3 core items. The beauty about this whole model, right, is that you can stop at anywhere you want. If you don't want to develop more, you don't have to develop more. But if you want to develop more, you could start developing a second line of goods. You could start developing complementary items to your product line. And then soon enough, you got 6 items that bang out 10 orders for you every single day. That's 60 orders a day without even really trying, because you've already put in all the work ahead of time. And now it's just smooth sailing from here. Realistically, when we talked about dealing with just one item and monitoring one metric, guys, the reselling that you're currently doing right now, where you're monitoring all these variations of items, and now you come back and I tell you, hey, I just need you to monitor 6 items, 6 SKUs. How difficult is that? And every single day, honestly, outside of all the shipping work of like packing anywhere between like 60 to maybe 120 items every single day, the only extra person that you would probably hire for the sales model is probably just, 1 or 2 extra guys for shipping. Other than that, essentially, I think answering questions and stuff, you just need one person to answer questions for basically 6 different items. You only need one person to print the shipping labels for 6 different items, like one click, and they all weigh the same and they all are the same exact item. Dude, if you do your workflow this way, essentially packing the item even becomes muscle memory because you're packing the same item over and over again. You don't really have to think about it that much. The workflow is so much more simplistic that now you have way more time to be an actual entrepreneur, to think about your business. Do I just want to do 1 or 2 really good items and still be able to maintain a day job? And this is kind of my side hustle, but it's a very, very lucrative side hustle. Or I'm going to expand this even further into a full-blown enterprise. The choice is really yours on doing this. So if I have well-established core items, right? So I have a well-established core items. I have an army of core items. Over time, I've established 8 items, core items for me that's doing very, very well. If for any reason at all, okay, I'm only left with 1 copy of each item, and all of these items basically move anywhere between 10 to 30 a day, all of these items are going to be sold by lunchtime, let alone wait for next week or next year or something. It's just not going to happen that way. Basically, I'd like you all to reflect on exactly what your goals were. Why did you even want to start a business? Was it to improve your lives and support your family? This is a straightforward blueprint for anyone who wants to achieve financial freedom. As you get more successful in business, you should have more free time on your hands, not less. Your money should work for you more, not the other way around. Getting started might seem like a challenge at first, but it's actually much more simple than you think. So instead of starting from scratch for every single item that you source, I highly recommend that you put all that time, effort, and energy into just one niche, one focus, one item. So I hope that you found that this video truly added value to the conversation. We will be diving more into steps and tips towards this approach. If you're interested in that, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, everyone. Now, another thing to know is that now I'm going to leave these cards up. Sorry, my bad.